Exploring God's call. Have you ever heard God's call? In 2018, there were 8 billion robocalls. That sounds like a lot until you hear the number from 2019. There were 60 billion robocalls. So hopefully, God isn't robocalling us because I really don't answer too many robocalls. You probably have heard God's call in one way or another. The Bible records how God has made his contact. God called Moses from a burning bush, Samuel with a voice in the night, Esther through her cousin Mordecai, Isaiah saw a vision and heard God ask, "Whom shall I send?" He sent an angel to Mary and a dream to Joseph. Saul was called through a blinding light. Abraham in the midst of his success, Job in the midst of his failures. And God asked Job 77 questions. Sarah greeted God's call with laughter, but then along came Isaac. God called Gideon several times to provide the proof that he needed. God called Amos the herdsman, Elijah through a small voice. A quiet "follow me" was given to Peter, James, and John. Even in the busyness of a kitchen, God called Martha. God has called many others throughout the centuries. How is God calling you? How do you distinguish the voice of God? God's call on Tuesday may not be the same call that he's going to give you on Thursday. Think of all the names that people call you. Mom, dad, brother, sister, grandpa, grandma. We're called by so many others, it may be difficult to hear God's call. We need to take time to listen for God's voice. Jesus often used a quiet time and a place for God's voice. There is a process that can assist us with the experience we had or the opportunity presents itself looking for God's guidance. God's call is like to hit send and meet the need of a voice in the world. To proclaim, to gather up people, we need to lead, educate, or nurture. Looking for God's guidance comes through discernment. And what discernment is to clarify, to sort out, to separate, to locate the source of that call. We also have to have some attitudes of the heart. We need to trust that God has work for us to do and that he loves us. We need to listen like Jesus did, to spend some quiet time with our hearts open and our minds clear. And in prayer, don't do all the talking. Take time to listen for God's call. Seek information, which is to look for the experiences of others. Be sincere, and most of all, be humble. Waiting patiently does not mean to do nothing. We need to continue to pray and study God's Word. But we also need to watch for obstacles, time frames, and most of all, doubt. When God calls us, we must be ready to respond and act. As I spoke earlier, God called Jonah to Nineveh, and Jonah's response was, well, God did have to get his attention first, but he did get his attention. We need to go by faith, by blind faith. And by blind faith, that is like when you get up in the middle of the night and you go to the stairs to go to the upstairs of your house and you don't turn the lights on, you still take that first step in darkness, knowing that the step is there. Communicate through prayer and listen. The purpose of the church is to make disciples, and that requires us to respond to God's will and hear and respond to the call. Here ends my message this morning. And now we would ask that the ushers come forward.